Wolfie?
My angry wig.
Oh, hey Nero, maybe we can get Rumpelstiltskin to make you one of his wigs. Because, you know, this whole situation's kind of messed up. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Welcome back to ToonGrin Reviews. I'm Nero and this is WHYBOY.
Please let this stop.
And we are back for the final conclusion of Shrektember.
Could I spare some change for gas? I need to get myself away from this place.
This is Pooh!
Usually we'd like to dance around the issue, maybe make a couple of jokes and gags and whatever, but honestly, when it comes to Shrek Forever After, it does not deserve it. It doesn't deserve the time, it doesn't deserve the effort, it just doesn't deserve.
It's a confused, mangled mess of a movie that originally was made to be just the 4th film in a 5-film series. But then during production was shifted to become the final chapter. That was even how this thing was marketed.
Oh yeah, look how well that turned out. But ignoring production screw-ups like that, it seems that in the end, the production crew was very proud of the final product. During production, the writers described the script as it was the right way for Shrek's journey to end, which was incredibly flattering. And then we got a laugh when the creative head at DreamWorks could describe Shrek 4 as, all that was loved about Shrek in the first film is brought to the final film.
Let's get this over with the conclusion of Shrektember. Shrek Forever After, the final chapter.
I mean, wow. DreamWorks just got worse and worse with these overly busy covers, didn't they?
Some may argue this makes for a nifty collage. Okay, I guess you could say that, but this still looks very bland and muddled. It literally looks like they took the promo art of these characters, slapped them all together, and then added the final chapter smack dab in the center. I don't even get why the 3 blind mice even made it onto this cover.
I think we gotta change that absolutely wonderful blurb here. There we go, much more accurate. We'll give credit though, the overabundance of characters meets the overabundance of problems the movie has.
And we start off this garbage fire with another storybook narrated opening, read by Rumpelstiltskin, who is voiced by Walt Dorn, who so happens to be the head of story on this movie. Strange that the head of story is also the lead villain. I wonder if there's some kind of correlation. But we have no time to answer that question, as apparently he has to come in and retcon the retelling of Shrek 2. Remember how Harold made a deal with the fairy godmother?
You see, we made a deal, Harold. And I assume you don't want me to go back on my part.
Indeed not.
Well, apparently somewhere during that time, Harold decided to renege on the deal and go to Rumpelstiltskin, a mystical creature of some kind who makes magical deals. Now let's recall, how did they introduce Lord Farquaad? Yeah, pretty epic. You know, big chant and everything. Real nice. Now, how did we introduce the fairy godmother?
Nip and tuck here and there to land that prince with a perfect hair. Lipstick liner, shadows, blush to get that prince with a sexy touch.
Oh yeah, awesome musical number. Very much poking fun at Disney and the way they do their musical numbers. Very nice work. Now, how did they introduce Prince Charming in the 3rd film? Oh right, the 3rd film was garbage and nobody remembers what happened in it. And here, how was the epic villain introduced? Why, none other than him just hanging out in a trailer park like a redneck, with Deliverance references. Who's that even being made for? Honestly.
Now if you know the tale of Rumpelstiltskin, you know he's a little deceitful weasel whose deals royally screw over anyone who takes them, and to defeat him you must guess his name. So the film weighs over that, showing that everyone knows his name now and he's living a trash park style and desperate to have Far, Far Away all to himself, and prepares his deal to screw over the king and queen. Because after Fairy Godmother wanting it and Charming wanting it, now Rumple wants it. Get used to this recycling because there is more to come.
Well, thankfully, at this exact moment, a random extra somehow got the script for this movie, off camera no less, and he rushes in, telling the king and queen Fiona has been saved, and so they tear up Rumple's contract.
Hooray! And we see where Shrek is after passing the royal buck to Arthur. He's back in the swamp with his wife, their 3 kids, Donkey and his 6 children, and Puss in Boots. Why do none of the latter have a life outside of Shrek's? Well, it's to help drill in how Shrek hates his life and wants nothing more than to go back to the way things were.
Morning. Better out than in.
You see, the basic plot structure we're looking at here is we need to get Shrek to make a deal with Rumpelstiltskin. Now, if Shrek was content with his life and everything was good, he'd have no reason to make a deal. Fair enough. So the film needs to establish that Shrek's life is not ideal. Again, fair enough. But instead of exploring those angles, the writers decide just to show you the exact same day with the exact same characters saying the exact same dialogue every day just to drill home how mundane his life is.
And they live happily
Ever?
after.
The thing is, real life does not work the same, and with the children, there are always new obstacles to overcome. That's what being a parent is. And all those options are blatantly ignored here. Also, they added in this weird annoyance that Shrek has become a celebrity. Not really sure why, because he didn't really defeat Farquaad in the first film. Dragon ate him. And he didn't defeat the fairy godmother. King Harold did. And then in the third film, Dragon crushes Charming. So, why is Shrek a celebrity? I guess the writers also forgot that the first film establishes this is now private land? So, that's trespassing?
As promised. Now hand it over.
Very well, Ogre. The deed to your swamp cleared out as agreed.
So why do they come wandering here like it's just on a scenic route from far, far away, when it was very much also established Shrek's swamp is by the kingdom of Duloc? It is farther away than far, far away.
What's annoying is this montage ends with Shrek looking over a wanted poster of himself with a sense of idolizing it, that it was better back when he was hunted. Did the writers forget the first movie?
Oh, well, you're in luck. Apparently the guys who worked on this movie didn't even work on the other 3.
Yay?
No, yeah. It means they have no idea what they're doing.
Oh good, so we got a clear case of missing the point entirely. As the first film established, Shrek pretty much hated his life. On a regular basis, he was harassed and hunted by people who wanted nothing more than to kill him for money. Shrek may have loved the ogre life when he was wallowing in mud pits and eating weed rats, but he didn't enjoy the villagers' constant harassment.
I'm an ogre! You know, grab your torch and pitchforks! Doesn't that bother you?
Nope.
Really?
Really.
Oh.
Did the writers not realize a lot of Shrek's terrorizing of villagers was out of self-preservation to just scare them off so that they'd leave him alone? Or did everybody simply forget one of the best emotional scenes of the first film?
People take one look at me and go, "Ah, help, run! A big, stupid, ugly ogre." They judge me before they even know me. That's why I'm better off alone.
Shrek was a victim like that of a minority. He was different and was treated poorly for just being an ogre instead of being treated as a person.
Oh, that is so sweet. You don't have to waste good manners on the ogre. It's not like it has feelings.
The fourth film somehow missed that point entirely, and now it treats it as though that Shrek is just ungrateful for his current life. This is such mismanaged writing, and it honestly only gets worse from here.
Right, since his kid's birthday needs to be where everything comes to a boiling point. So here, everything needs to be going against Shrek. Now look, we hate Shrek the Third, that's a clear fact at this point. But at worst, it's forgettable, at best, it's boring. Which a movie should never be either, but Shrek Forever After.
This movie, this scene, it It made us so upset that we had to stop all the work we were doing on Shrek the Third, just dead in its tracks, and we came right to this movie because we were just so enraged by the concept of how this movie even tries to work.
This scene botches nearly every character involved. So Shrek's at his kid's birthday party and he gets the cake and he's annoyed at Sprinkles the ogre because the writers want to push this weird delusion that seeing a cute ogre is upsetting to Shrek. He wants ogres to be ferocious again. It's like these people didn't even see the first film. The whole concept of ogres are like onions. Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. Shrek was a character with layers. He wasn't ferocious because he was an ogre. He put up ferocious walls as a means to keep people out so they wouldn't hurt him.
But that's not all, because to really drill home how crap the situation is, we got civilians bugging Shrek for autographs and for him to do his world-famous roar.
Excuse me, Mr. Shrek? Could you do that ogre roar of yours for my son? He's a big fan.
Do the roar.
As long as you're not doing anything, how about one of those famous Shrek roars?
Do the roar.
Hey, I believe you promised my son a roar.
Do the roar.
Which is so strange that the roar is world famous. He did it once in the first film, again to scare people away because they were hunting him. He did it again once in the second film to spook a dog. He didn't even do it in the third film, and now it's suddenly world famous? Him farting or burping will be more famous than his roars. At least he does that in every movie.
Now, if you think the villagers are bad, and trust us they are, it gets even worse when it comes to Shrek's friends. You see, the writing is so bad that in order for the plot to get to where it needs to go, the writers have to come in and rewrite every member of Shrek's cast, his friends and his family, completely out of character. First off is Donkey, and if you thought he was annoying in the first film, and bad in the second film, and worse in the third film, then good news, because the fourth film is where Donkey really takes the cake. No joke, Donkey goes right up to the cake and licks clean across the entire top of it, ruining it for Shrek's kids.
What an ass! But don't you worry, it gets even better. No, it doesn't. You lie.
Fiona's shocked that the cake is ruined, but before Shrek can even explain what happened, his mother-in-law is quick to blame him because of his ogre way of doing things.
You licked it! No! Just because you're an ogre doesn't mean you have to eat like one.
It's funny, in the second film, it was Harold who was the closed-minded one about Shrek being an ogre.
This is Fiona's choice.
Yes, but she was supposed to choose the prince we picked out for her. I mean, you expect me to give my blessings to this thing?
In fact, when it came to the second film, Lillian was the one that was open-minded and even tried to persuade Harold into looking past the fact that Shrek was an ogre.
Fiona does, and she'll never forgive you if you don't. I don't want to lose our daughter again, Harold.
Yet, for the sake of contrivance, Lillian acts completely different for the scene to work. But it gets even better!
Liar! Liar! You're a liar.
And since Donkey has been thoroughly ruined, they have to move on to the Three Pigs, because apparently for some reason, this company truly thinks these characters need to stick around for whatever purpose. And what do the Three Pigs do? Well, they eat the first cake, they eat the backup cake, they eat the cupcakes, they eat the lollipops, and they eat the croissants. So basically, the only trait they have, being the noble fat asses they are, is to consume and gorge on all the food at the party.
So despite this being Shrek's kid's birthday, their friend's kid's birthday...
Everybody's acting like a complete butt.
This, of course, comes to a boiling point where Shrek finally snaps and lets out a roar and gets thunderous applause from the audience because apparently it's world famous now, before he finally sees the new cake and snaps and just smashes it with his fist.
So if this wasn't bad enough that every character was acting like, a butt.
Now the writers need to botch Fiona's character. Shrek's own wife can't seem to understand that there are some hints that things might be wrong.
Fun fact, the production team actually consulted with a bunch of marriage counselors to really just get into their heads about what a married couple should act like.
Really?
Uh-huh.
At what point do you think they suggested a Faustian deal to abort your marriage and your children?
Oh, that's the One More Day special.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Fascinating.
So since Rumple overheard the two, he fakes a crash down the road so he can trick Shrek into his shop. Rumple plans to have Shrek sign over 1 day of Shrek's life for a chance at being an ogre again.
Gotta love how Rumple is so powerful he can bend all of reality like it's tapioca pudding. Yet he is only at all useful if somebody signs a piece of paper. Anyway, with the deal struck, Shrek is transported to an alternate reality, and he can partake in all the joys of being an ogre in a montage. Doing things like openly terrorizing children, ruining weddings, and running away from villagers trying to kill him.
Yeah, you know, like all the stuff Shrek loved to do.
You mean like making callbacks to the other better movies?
My God, we could be watching better movies right now.
This is the part where you run away!
You know, this might just be me, it might just be you, but I don't think a bad movie should ever remind you to be watching a better movie.
Now, since Shrek is written to be more selfish and out of character, he is blissfully ignorant of how his life changed until he spots a wanted poster for Fiona as an ogre. So reminded of his lost love, he rushes to where their home would be. With it gone, Shrek lashes out, and in his rage is spotted by Rumple's army of witches and is captured.
You witches are making a big mistake! I know my rights!
Now comes the part where the movie has to stop dead in its tracks, and we're gonna enter a It's a Wonderful Life territory.
Ooh, so we're just gonna see a series of scenes where Shrek's self-decision makes everyone's life horrible. Like you make my words.
Yeah, horrible. Like that take. Put it in the review!
And going over each one in detail would be a slog, not just for us as writers, but for you guys as viewers. It'd be pointless and just pad this nonsense out. So we'll be brief on this, because the changes that occur really don't have an effect too much on the plot. For one, the gingerbread man is now used in cookie cockfights and has no bearing on the plot.
Pinocchio is a puppet who is desperate to be a real boy and has no bearing on the plot.
The pigs, wolves, and donkey are enslaved by Rumple and his witch horde, and has no bearing on the plot.
And Puss in Boots is fat with no bearing on the plot. Except he's fat. Gee whiz, Nero, it sure is great to get past all these superfluous characters so fast.
You cut the crap! I'm letting you right now! Right now! These characters are annoying. They're not funny. Just watch! Look how unfunny they are!
Man, you are a catastrophe, and you are redunculous.
What was that?
That is what passes for comedy in this tripe.
With Shrek captured, he's brought to Rumple's palace, who explains to Shrek that he lost 1 day from their deal, and it was the one day that Shrek was born. Ooh, who cares? This somehow turned far, far away into a cesspool taken over by Rumple and his witch horde.
Now comes a series of questions that will never be answered. Are you ready, WHYBOY?
Yes, sir!
1. What happened to Farquaad in his crusade on fairy tale trash, which would result in Rumple's exile? Maybe Rumple was more in far, far away territory, so maybe he was out of reach of the Duloc Crusade? And if he's out of the reach of the Duloc Crusade, that's fine, I'll give you that.
2. What about the fairy godmother? Or did the writers again forget?
That's the fairy godmother's cottage. She's the largest producer of hexes and potions in the whole kingdom.
So with her understanding of potions, hexes, and her wand, she was arguably the most powerful person in this franchise, and what? Where did she go?
3. How did Rumple rise to power? It's obvious that if he succeeded in killing Harold and Lillian, that the godmother, who made a deal with Harold, would have put a huge target on Rumple's back. Actually, if Shrek didn't exist, wouldn't Charming have just saved Fiona, and then she would become human?
4. Why do the witches follow Rumple? The witches have a variety of magic, yet Rumple only has power if a contract is signed. Sure, he threatens them with water to melt them, but with his lack of actual power, he stands no chance to really overthrow any of them.
5. This movie rides on a time-sensitive plot requiring Shrek needing to kiss his true love to break Rumple's spell within 24 hours. Yet Rumple, despite knowing this, as the writer of the contract, which means he put the clause in the contract himself, never at one point decided to go after Fiona or send somebody to capture her before she left the Dragon's Keep.
6. So is Rumple an idiot for overlooking the obvious?
Why, yes. Yes, he is.
Oh my god, we answered that one!
Yeah!
So having escaped Rumple's palace and breaking his disco ball, no joke, that does come up later as a plot point. We move to Donkey being captured by a secret ogre rebel alliance, because ogres now all exist again. Yay? How? I don't know. This goes nowhere as Donkey is freed and Shrek is shanghaied into the Ogre Rebellion. Also, he can get the reveal of the gasp! Warrior woman Fiona!
You ever notice as these movies went on, Fiona has nothing really to do? First film, she was relegated to MacGuffin territory to get the plot along. The second film, she's mostly sidelined while the film focuses more on Shrek and what he can do for her. The third film is the strange forced girl power angle and has very little focus on her pending motherhood. And now they go full warrior woman, but Fiona doesn't really do anything.
I never really noticed, but that is true. Most of her scenes in this universe aren't even of her as much of a leader outside of the single strategy scene. In fact, most of her scenes are of Shrek either flirting with her or forcing himself onto her so he can break the spell, and it's played for laughs.
An apologetic hug? And a quick kiss goodbye.
Ow! Hey, hey!
Fiona doesn't really have much in the way of glorious moments of being a warrior. Instead, it's just like she got relegated again to MacGuffin to drive the plot, while Shrek takes center stage. We know the franchise is called Shrek, but that doesn't mean you can't try to flesh out the other characters. So while Shrek attempts to force his way into Fiona's ogre undies, and we get a sad attempt at a fat joke from Puss.
Feed me, if you dare.
Wait a minute, if Shrek never existed, it means he never befriended Puss in Boots. So wouldn't the cat just still be a mercenary then? Yep.
We cut back to Rumpel's palace as he has hired a mercenary to capture Shrek and Fiona, the Pied Piper.
Who hands down in this one moment shows he's the most OP character in the franchise. As with his fluting, Piper can control virtually everyone and force them to bust a move.
What? Okay.
Well, speaking of busting, Shrek's stalkerish attempts to woo Fiona surprisingly doesn't work. Who would have thought? So he figures that the best way to get into her heart is by assaulting his wife. The beatings start to make Fiona's heart fall for Shrek, but the ogre ambush is underway, so she pushes Shrek aside, but Shrek is determined to make Fiona see he is her true love she waited for.
I know that you don't like the covers wrapped around your feet, and I know that you sleep by candlelight because every time you close your eyes, you're afraid you're going to wake up back in that tower. But most importantly, Fiona, I know that the reason you turn human every day is because you've never been kissed. Well, by me.
Wow, that would be so moving. Keyword being would, if we actually saw the characteristics instead of being told about the characteristics.
Well, you can argue in Shrek 2, Shrek and Fiona had the romantic connection and equally gave and sacrificed for one another to make the relationship work. Everything else that could help us see the dedication, the joy, and the depth of their love is glossed over. Exposition should not be where we hear of details that make Fiona a character.
While Shrek's wooing is cut short as the ambush is thwarted by the Pied Piper, who boogies all the ogres into his catcher, which apparently is Shrek's fault.
I can't believe I let this happen, and it's all because of you!
No, I don't think it is his fault because Rumpelstiltskin knew about your ambush, and he put in a guy that can control all your bodies with ease. You were kind of in a lose-lose situation there.
The fat and ass duo managed to save Shrek and Fiona, but leave all the other ogres captured. Fiona's pissed at her failure, gets ready to go off on her own to save them, but Shrek persists to get Fiona to kiss him to break the contract. But surprisingly, after being harassed constantly and seeing all of her friends captured, Fiona isn't feeling the love for Shrek's Granny Smith green bum bum.
Though feeling hopeless that he will get true love's kiss, Shrek finds out Rumpel put a reward for his capture, and the one who brings him in will be rewarded with a deal of a lifetime. So showing a bit of the selfless Shrek that we remember from the first two films, Shrek turns himself in and makes a deal that, for his capture, all the other ogres will be set free.
Stiltskin, we had a deal. You agreed to free all ogres.
Oh yeah.
But Fiona isn't all ogre, is she?
Too bad for those fine prints, though. And to also be fair, why did you expect the guy who got you into this situation would keep his word?
So with Shrek and Fiona captured in the same room, where if they happen to escape, they can easily reach each other and kiss to break the spell, Donkey Puss and the other ogres try and figure out a way inside. Their plan is to use their shields to form a disco ball to replace the one that broke earlier, but Rumple didn't ever order another disco ball, and they did this plan outside the castle within earshot of the witches.
Hey, we can hear you! Sorry!
So what happened? Did they turn around for like 5 minutes, turn back, there's a big old disco ball there, and then the witches just went, "Oh, look at the shiny ball, let's bring it inside."
The climax had about as hand-wavy as that. As Rumple off-screen captured the dragon, an ogre witch army breaks out, Shrek and Fiona bring back that shoelace line from the first act and just jam it in, and Rumple is captured and defeated, all ending by the end of Shrek's 24 hours.
Oh wow, what perfectly contrived timing. So Shrek starts to fade away like a fart as he says his goodbyes to Fiona.
Do you know what the best part of today was?
I got the chance to make more money off this crappy sequel. Blech.
But of course, with one final kiss, they break the contract in time, and alternate reality, everybody poofs from existence, and we travel back to the moment of Shrek's roar because, why actually followed through on owning up to his actions like the movie wants Shrek to do, when you can just wipe it all away?
That was Shrek Forever After.
And it was awful.
Now, this all boils down to a matter of opinion. However, the two of us honestly believe that this is not only a horrible movie, but it is the worst sequel to the Shrek franchise. What was once a satire of film and fairy tales has slowly degenerated into a series of tropes that has become unanimous with DreamWorks films. From out-of-place pop culture music to forced film references, to just uninspired ideas.
The film blatantly ignores continuity between films just for the sake of the story to work. Friends of Shrek who once laid their lives on the line to save him and Fiona in the second film are sacrificed, just so the plot can move to where it wants to be. Instead of exploring the aspect of Shrek being a family man, that idea is quickly cast aside, as if the writers felt chained to the concept of Shrek having kids, so they got rid of them as soon as possible. It's funny that Shrek Forever After could have easily been Incredibles 2, 8 years before Incredibles 2 even happened. They could have explored Shrek's life as a father, while Fiona worked with the kingdom and really shown growth with these characters that we've been with through all 4 of these movies.
Now, we can't be mad at the movie for not being something we want. We need to grade it on what it is, and in this case, it's a large backtrack that pays homage to itself instead of taking steps forward. Once again, Shrek must be the one who changes, but not anyone else around him. Shrek must learn a lesson to be grateful for what he has, even if it's clear that the movie has to bend over backwards to make his life utterly miserable in the process.
Even Shrek, who is arguably level-headed in the other films, is now different for the sake of plot. For example, in the second film, Shrek knew that storming the castle would require more muscle, so he went to the Muffin Man to get a giant cookie to give his team the advantage. Even in the fourth film, he was aware that the waffle in the middle of the woods seems a little bit weird and probably a trap.
Yet when it comes to allowing Fiona to know what really happened, he first blurts it out sounding like a buffoon, then tries to forcibly flirt with her, and when that fails, he forces himself onto her. So the lead character was turned into a scumbag to just get back what he wants.
And this could have been avoided if Shrek just showed Fiona the physical contract, so he could prove everything he said was true. And this is all because the movie blatantly chooses to ignore what's been set up for simply the sake of drama.
You got characters like the Pied Piper, who's written to be so powerful, his flute having the ability to control witches, ogres, royals, frogs, and even Rumpelstiltskin himself, yet he's relegated to henchman territory despite being more powerful than the lead villain of the film. Then the writers have no idea what to do about writing how he's defeated, so they just drop him from the story entirely, since they've backed themselves into a narrative corner.
Given how powerful the Piper is, why wasn't he made out to be the villain? He's already more intimidating than Rumple as he rides in on a sea of rats, and the moment he is mocked by the witches, he puts them in their place. Also, as a fun side note, the Pied Piper's jazz fluting is played by Jeremy Steig, the son of William Steig, the author of the original Shrek book.
When it comes to Rumpelstiltskin, who looks completely different in the third film, sure, the Pied Piper was a gag in Shrek 1, but that's understandable. No one at DreamWorks believed this franchise would amount to anything. Again, this was the punishment films. They wanted Prince of Egypt to be the good one. It's just a bit weird that the lead bad guy in the fourth film looks nothing like the guy who shows up in the third film. On top of that, Rumple is just a hodgepodge of all the past three villains. A tiny terror that rules an empire with an iron fist, has magical powers to help others for a price, and his life is ruined after Shrek rescued Fiona.
They mixed all of these elements and still turned out a boring character. Rumple lacks the bare basic of what an animated villain in a family film really needs, and that's personality and presentation. Having a charismatic actor elevate an otherwise one-dimensional figure. Instead, Rumple just has a temper and wears wigs. Enjoy this oh-so memorable character!
The first film may have had the cliche third act misunderstanding, but the second film felt so natural in terms of storytelling. But between the forgettable third film and now this poorly meshed fourth film, everything feels so artificial. It seems that the writers like the idea of a world without Shrek, but ignore basic rules of cause and effect in canon. It comes out very cynical, as if the writers know full well this is the last movie, so they might as well just get it out, get the money, and leave.
The animation is at best fine, but nothing about it is truly amazing. Heck, in the same year, just a few months earlier, How to Train Your Dragon was released, and it looked much more impressive in its animation department. Really, Shrek Forever After is nearly as forgettable as Shrek the Third, but comes off more irritating as a fan of the film series because it ignores so much to get where it needs to go and is too blunt in getting its point across. Next year in 2019, there is a rumor going around that there will be a Shrek 5 that's supposed to be either a sequel or a prequel to show us where the franchise all started or some crap.
And really, I think at this point, a lot of us can agree, the Shrek well is officially tapped out.
Thank you everybody for watching Shrektember. We hope you had as much fun watching these videos as we did making them. Please be sure to leave your thoughts below on your favorite Shrek movie and moments. We really would appreciate to hear what you have to say.
And be sure to keep up to date and support future ToonGrin projects by subscribing and hitting the notification bell, following us on social media, Patreon, and our official site, ToonGrin.com.
Until next time folks, be sure to tune in
to ToonGrin.